Good morning, CLC. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Nell. Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Jeffrey. That was absolutely beautiful. I don't know about you, but Great Wave and the Alm Chant, that's one of my favorites. It always just sets the tone for such a lovely Sunday. So I hope all of you are having a lovely Sunday. I know I am after that. Before we get started, we do have a few announcements. We have a couple of things coming up. On this Wednesday, January 19th, Reverend Jesse Jennings is going to be joined by Donald John Lewis. He is a motivator, speaker, he is a life coach, he's a personal trainer, he's a mentor, and they are going to be having the second installment of the race conversation. And this conversation is going to go in depth in a number of different questions surrounded by race, ethnicity, who we are, why we are the way we are, and how we all fit into this cosmic realm. So I hope that you guys can join us for that. I know it is going to be very enlightening. I know it's going to be very inspirational and educational. So I hope you can make that. That's this Wednesday. And it's going to start at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live. So hopefully you're getting notifications when we go live. If you are not, you need to go to Facebook. Make sure that you sign up to receive notifications. Hit that bell to like and follow us. And make sure that you check to indeed receive notifications so you can find out when this happens, when Reverend Lisa goes live every morning, when Reverend David Dewhurst goes live every evening, because they always share such enlightening and inspirational information. So now, speaking of support, I would like you to take this moment just in support of yourself, to enjoy this inner healing experience for your peace, for your well-being. To start off, just take a few deep breaths. Breathe in life, energy, and breathe out and release all that no longer serves you. All tension and stress you may be holding in your body. All worries, anxieties, or doubts that you have in your mind, just let them go for right now. Breathe in knowing that you are love, you are power, you are a godling, perfectly designed by the divine. Allow yourself to enjoy that in this moment, putting aside any worries or any doubts, and allowing yourself to be here, now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your right hand, and let my words act as your own, for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems, while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of the infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. In visualizing this idea as already acted upon and brought to pass, in seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room with me this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in the room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Grateful for the good in your life.
We're going to have to ground you.
You can ground me when I come back.
Lisa's been grounded.
Nope.
Can we tell them what you're doing?
Yes.
All right.
I'm super excited.
All right. She's super excited. Is she going skiing? No, not this time. She's going to our annual convention, is the Reverend Lisa Ryan. And while there, she is going to stand. I think they make you stand rather than sit. She's going to stand for her ordination panel. Yeah. And when she flies through that, with the love and support of all of the people on that panel and all of her colleagues who know her from ministerial school, and certainly, and I would like to think most of all of us. Okay, she will be ordained into the ministry. Ordination, as Dr. George Brannon said at mine, lo these many years, he said many things in life happen multiple times or can. Ordination happens one time. Ordination happens one time, and it's a lifetime commitment to service that you are so prepared for, as is that young man at the back of the room who will be following behind you soon. So, good morning, Creative Life and all the ships at sea. Thank you for being with us. And this is week 3 of the basic series of Science of Mind, which this year stretches to 9 weeks instead of the usual 4 or 5, because we're working through a book called 10 Ideas that Make a Difference. And two of the weeks are going to be combined. So we're going to have a bonus week there sometime in February to knock this out. This is the subject of a book study with practitioner Sarah Westbrook, as you heard in the announcements. And you can get the PDF. It's out of print, but I can send you the PDF, or she can, and you can read through it. We're taking an idea a week out of it and also folding it into just the general basics of this teaching and what it is we're up to here at good old Creative Life Spiritual Center and all of the centers for spiritual living that teach pretty much the same thing. So that said, I got up this morning with a purpose. You got up this morning with a purpose. And when you get up with a purpose, my purpose was to come in and tell you that I got up this morning with a purpose. And then I have other things to do this afternoon. But my morning is devoted to being with you and saying these things that I say. And when you feel like you have a purpose and you've gotten up with a purpose, it's easier to believe that life has a purpose, that the world has a purpose, that society has a purpose, that all of this is moving somewhere. It's a lot easier to be optimistic about how the whole world is working or is going to work in that great come and get it day, when you feel like within yourself you have an optimism that you're winning at life, that something effectively is being done in your life. Even if you wake up in the morning and you say, today I'm going to do laundry. You know, today I'm going to accomplish this small set of tasks. Or even today I'm going to rest. Today I'm going to take what we're calling now a mental health day, spiritual health day, you know, and I'm just going to go sit in the sun. I'm just going to go take a walk. Say, just going to do that. I mean, that's really healthy, really, really healthy stuff to have that kind of purpose. You step out into the world and all of a sudden it looks like the world has a purpose. And the flowers and the bees and the animals and the clouds overhead and everything around you suddenly fits together. You begin to see the stuff that you learned about in 4th grade biology, about how all the systems of life work together. And flowers are pretty and smell nice so that bees are attracted, and that's a very functional thing because then they pollinate other flowers and so on. And you learned about this, and it seemed kind of maybe remote from you, but you step out into the middle of it and you see, as that wonderful saying is by Ashley Montague, I think, but I don't remember, where he said that nature is not something we visit, it's something we are. Life is not something we visit, it's something we are. Life is pulsing through us. So the 3rd chapter of this little book, 10 Ideas, is all about invisible forces. There are invisible forces surrounding you, and they are benevolent, and they are congenial, and they are happy, wonderful forces that want you to thrive. And somebody might say, well, what about the coronavirus? Is that one of those forces? No, I'll tell you why not. Several reasons. One is it's not invisible. It's microscopic, but it's not invisible. You can see the thing. It's a function of physicality. Another is, you know what? It has no mind of its own. Has no presence of its own. Has no substance of its own. This goes to the larger question that often comes up about evil in the world. You know, the cosmic battle of good and evil. A lot of us were raised with that idea. God is good, Satan is evil, and the two of them are fighting on you. They're fighting on your head, you know, to try to win you over to one side or the other. And evil is tempting. Evil is like refined sugar, you know. It's like, right? It's like the fats they put in food that make them really tasty. And it kind of pulls you in, whereas good is austere, you know. Good is about self-denial, and so we learned all of this stuff. And if you were like me, you gave it some thought. You're like, I wonder how much of this other I can get away with, you know? But all there is one power. And you can use it, and I suppose you can misuse it. Or you can use it in a way that's less than healthy, that's less than useful, and thereby learn. The things that seem to oppose us in life, or that we seem to oppose, have no agenda of their own. They are simply effects of prior consciousness. The world that you and I inherited, that we were born into, was a function of prior consciousness. The generations that came before us shaped this world, and the beliefs and the whole sociology of the thing we inherited. Then we looked around and we said, some of this is unacceptable to me. Some of this ought to be unacceptable to all of us. And we began to change it. We began to stand up and speak out. And this weekend we celebrate one of our own who did that, Dr. King, who was not only, by the way, the tireless champion of civil rights and human rights that we were brought up to realize that he was through reading his work. He was also a spiritual genius. Let me riff on that for just a minute with you. You know, there's for want of a better word, I'll call it a pedigree. There's a pedigree in New Thought that we have where, like, who was your teacher and who was their teacher and who was their teacher and so on. And you come out of the CSL school or you come out of the Unity school and there's this literature and all of this, and you can see influences. And if you spend enough time kind of marinating in this information, you can read a modern writer of New Thought or human potential material, and you can see, well, I think they were influenced by so-and-so, because there's kind of a subtext voice in there. But there are an awful lot of people that come to this thinking, that come to this teaching directly on their own, without the benefit of books and classes and workshops and this whole structure. Dr. King was one of them. Another was Masaharu Taniguchi, who founded the Seichonoye School in Japan. These individuals, and so many more like them, some that we've heard of and some that we haven't, stood back and looked at life and said, you know, I think there's something else going on here than what I have customarily been told. I think there's a law, and I think there's a love. I think there's a principle. I think there's a presence. And I'm going to test that hypothesis and see how it works. And they've tested it and proven it to their own satisfaction. And that's what makes somebody a real standout spiritual genius, is they come to this on their own, which is not to say that all of us who've been exposed to the literature and all aren't spiritual geniuses also. But we had a kickstart, we had a head start with the information. So Dr. King, he talks about, he said, if you don't have self-love, and a lot of us don't, it's very difficult to feel God's love. Well, that's metaphysics right there. I mean, I talked about that with you last week. You read all about it in Ernest Holmes. This self-love thing. Self-love is not widely championed in the culture. It certainly wasn't in Dr. King's day, but it's there that I can't let it in if I don't feel it, if I don't have a place in my heart for it. He said sometimes we're so wounded by life that we have a deep emotional scarring. Holmes called it an emotional burden. Either way, it works out the same thing. You've got something standing in the way of letting in the light, letting in the good. And when this happens, people get snarky, people get mean, they get defensive, they hunker down. And when that groups of those people get together, then you have trouble in the world. People get together and they resent the other, and they're suspicious of their neighbor and suspicious of the of the people over the border and all the rest, and the whole thing begins to come apart at the seams, and they walk around and they say, well, now if you fix this and this and this out here politically and economically, well, then everything would be fine. No, it wouldn't. You'd still feel where you were, and you'd have to project it onto somebody else. And then you get rid of them, or you fix them, or you pass laws or do whatever, and then it's somebody else, and then it's somebody else, and then it's there's a hunger in the soul that cannot be satisfied by the manipulation of outer events, which can also be thought of as rearranging the furniture. You rearrange the furniture, you still don't like the house you live in. This is the deep emotional pain that a lot of us have experienced in some way, and Holmes and others. And I think Dr. King, I don't want to put too many words in his mouth, too many thoughts in his head and all, but I think he would agree that it all traces back to a sense of separation from our source. Now, he was a Baptist minister, and so his understanding of his source and his theology was framed in that conversation. But all of us agree there's a source. There's a God, there's a power, there's a something, even if it's just biology. There's something, and we have issued from it, and yet we remain in it. When I feel like I'm separate from it, whether it's a big theological conversation or a conversation that's happening in the room. If you feel like people don't like you, they start to show up like they don't. Have you noticed that? If you think people are talking about you behind your back, even if they're not, it feels like they are. And it's the same thing. If you walk around scared, there might not be a reason to be scared, but it doesn't matter, you're scared. And being scared, you tend to extract a reason from neutral nature to be scared. And there's something, you can always find something to worry about. I was reading the other day, not to bum you out, but here it is. They're saying, well, now when the coronavirus goes, you remember Delta? Delta's like a thing of the past. Delta is it's so 2021. And then there's Omicron, or oh my God, Omicron has come along. And how many letters are there in the Greek alphabet? And they do the same thing with hurricanes now, and so you run out and you start over and all. It's XYZ. And it's like, well, now the permafrost is melting in Siberia, and God knows what's going to come up out of there. And I'm reading this, and I'm sitting there, and I sat back in my chair, and I thought, whoa. And then I thought, wait a minute. I woke up with a purpose today. That's what I thought. I can't control what's coming up out of the permafrost in Siberia. And I know that there are people who can, or at least have a whole lot more science back of them than I do on this, and are in a position, globally, governmentally, whatever, to make some kind of a difference, and all power to them. And I can know that answers are coming to the people who have a place in themselves for the answers. If some big, complicated algorithm occurred to me, I wouldn't know what to do with it. But there are those who, scientifically trained, put it all together. That's what I can know. And in the meantime, I can sit there and breathe in and say, all right, so I was delivered this information, which is not a mistake either, and I'll come back to that in a second, but I say to myself, how many lives are there? One life. How many powers are there? One power. Where is that power? Right where I am. How then can I fear? How then can I fall into the dark pit of despair? Dr. King said, in the mountain of despair, there's a stone of hope. Think of that. In the mountain of despair, the mountain of fear, there's a stone of hope. It's carved out of that mountain. We develop a new idea by reshaping the existing ideas. Is anything really new? Or is an attitude simply a redirected consciousness of where it's been going? So I sit there and I think to myself, there's one life, there's one power, the right ideas are coming to the right people. I said it's no mistake, though, because if information, I'll offer this to you as a suggestion. See if this is true for you. When information crosses my field of vision, it's there for me to do something with, even if what I do is refer it along. It's never entirely out of left field. So I read about what's happening in a faraway land to people that I've never met and things that are complicated and beyond my control. It's telling me at least have some compassion, at least step into the feeling of what it would be like to be them. And I want to dwell on that point for a minute, because sometimes we think that runs counter to metaphysical work, to feel the suffering of somebody else. No, I'll tell you what it is. It's a vaccination. It's an inoculation. Here's what I mean. When I was a little kid, my mother she was a very spiritual being, and she was allergic to religion. Okay? Big time. She'd break out or something. I mean, she had nothing to do. The other members of my family were involved. You heard me talk about the church I went to and all this. Well, that was not her. Okay? That was my grandmother, my aunt, and some other people in the family and friends and all. My mother was what, for want of a better word, you call an agnostic. Maybe an agnostic kind of bordering on atheistic. But you know what? She was a deeply spiritual person. What? How does that happen? She just hadn't heard a story she believed in. She felt that religion hijacked people. Religion moved people around. It was largely about money and power. She wasn't half wrong, was she? Good. Well, one of the pieces of advice that she gave me when I was a little kid sounds crazy, but I bought it and it works, and it was this. If you're worried about something, if you don't know what to do, think about the worst thing that could possibly happen. Sit there with it and feel it. And then what? You know what? It doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to. It sounds crazy talk, doesn't it? I watched her use this, and I started applying it myself. And then later when I met up with metaphysics, which says, fill your heart with the expectancy of good. It's like, well, where do I put this advice? What is she saying? She's saying you're taking the heat out from under the thing. If you sit there and think about the worst thing that could happen and you say, I could survive this. I would thrive from this. I would come away stronger from this. Then suddenly you don't have the emotional fixation on it, and you're not constantly drawn back toward it. And you're free. And you're free. So I don't know what it's like to live in a refugee camp. I don't know what it's like to not have clean water to drink. I don't know what it's like to not have a roof over my head. I've been very fortunate my whole life to be pretty comfortable. With things. And great. And I'm grateful. I really am. But I also have to be able to understand what it's like to not have any of that stuff and how that must feel. And to realize the resolve that folks who are deprived of this have to dig down into themselves to find. Because that is an heroic act that they are engaged in. Also, by doing this, I affirm my own humanity, my connection with all people everywhere. Suddenly, as Reverend Lisa brilliantly said last year or the year before in one of her talks, there's no them. Remember that? There's no them. Where did they go? They were internalized. They were welcomed in to the heart as part of one whole human family. So something else Dr. King said was, if you can't make a highway, make a trail. Ooh, I like that. See, sometimes in our spiritual work, we want to go out and we want to pave the highway. We want to take over the world with it. We want it to be, big and popular and approved of. Approval is a big motivator for a lot of us, Well, sometimes it's just a little trail. Sometimes it's just a little path through the woods that you're creating. And it seems like you have no company. It seems like you have no friends. You have no support. Have you ever had that happen to you where you've stood up in a situation and said, wait a minute, this isn't right. What's going on here? and everybody looked at you and told you to sit down. Quit rocking the boat. Come on, let's get on with things here. And he said, no, this is unacceptable to me. You know, well, that's you blazing a trail. You blazing a trail. Dr. King spoke relentlessly of doing the right thing for the right reason, regardless, doing the right thing. And he tried to. He probably didn't always succeed, no one does, but he tried to do the right thing in every situation. Okay, well, on the one hand, there's a moral teaching back of that we've all gotten about if you do the right thing, God will be happy with you and your afterlife will be comfortable and secure and all the rest. But there's another, I think, better reason for doing it, for trying to do the right thing, is you invite into your life the presence of these invisible sources, invisible forces, invisible powers, to demonstrate in a visible, tangible way what they have been up to. And so all of the energies that pass through the room and pass across the world that seem real vague and intangible, all of a sudden they come down to earth and they present a message. In the way that we discovered over time that we could, create radio waves, manage radio waves, and then have receiving sets and so on. Now it's fiber optic cable, now wireless. Now wireless. There's an old joke about that. I don't remember. I'll come up with it maybe for next week about wireless. But anyway, everything, now there's all, you're sitting there. We got this whole thing going out now. This is on Wi-Fi right here. This is remarkable to an older human like myself. I remember when, God, I told you this before when I got an IBM Correcting Selectric 2 typewriter. In about 1978, I thought, it does not get better than this. This is the end of tech. I can backspace and correct as I go. Within a few years, they had a thing where you could now move paragraphs of text in a little 256K machine, with a little green screen about this big. And I thought, I was wrong. It doesn't get any better than this. And now look. And who knows where all of this is going, okay? These are invisible forces all around us, circulating all around us, all sorts of powers and energy swirling around. What use are we going to make of them? What use are we going to make? Because they're open. And you certainly know this from the internet. I have found brilliant things. Seldom is the article I write, seldom is the talk I give that I'm not somewhere on the internet researching some information. These two are doing that right now, putting stuff in the comment bars off what I've said. You're watching this, right? It's a blessing. It's a wonderful thing. And there's also garbage on there. There's also absolute garbage on there. Well, it's just like humankind. I can fill my consciousness with sweetness and light, or fill my consciousness with hell. Hellish images. What use will I make of these invisible forces? When I say they're benevolent, I mean that in two ways. One is, they're not really, they're neutral, okay? Like electricity, like this. But in the other meaning, they are benevolent because the ones that last, the ones that are most functional, contain the healthiest information. The healthy outlook, the wholesome outlook. I believe this with all my heart, that people who love rather than hate live better lives. They're healthier. They might not even have a longer lifespan in terms of human years, because they might get up some morning and decide that what they need to do is in the next realm. You know what I'm saying? But they digest their food better, okay? They walk with a spring in their step. They have a smile on their lips. They're just generally more successful, happier people than people who hate. Because hate tears down your body. Talked a lot about that. Dr. King. Hate wears down. He says hate is too heavy a burden to carry. He says, I'm not going to carry it any longer. And in terms of pure social engagement, he had reasons to hate I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. And he started to. He started to hate, and he caught himself at it. And he pulled himself back from it because he knew that he could. And so he lived this strong life that was cut short by someone who hated, but he left an indelible mark on our culture, which is why when I mentioned his name at the top of this talk, you'd heard of him. And it's not just because he was on a postage stamp or there's a holiday tomorrow, whatever. You'd heard of him. You know, he's embedded in your heart. Well, so filling the mind with the expectancy of good turns these otherwise neutral forces into useful energies for us. And they bring us ideas. He says Holmes says they strengthen the body, okay? They regulate the emotions, and they introduce creative ideas to the mind. They introduce creative ideas to the mind. I was reading this piece this week about 10 new first-time novelists. They're saying, who just published in 2021. They're saying you should read these 10 people. I have the article. I haven't read them. I haven't had time for novels lately, but I want to make more time for that because it's great fun and educational. These 10 people. And they push through. I want to offer to you this idea. You know, when we imagine the struggles of people who are in poverty and who are in sickness and who are under political oppression, that's important that we should do that, and there it is. And there's another body of people who suffer under the weight of their fear and apprehension about how they're going to be received in the world. And these are the people who are setting out to do creative things. You know, I watch these musicians every week get up on this stage, and I don't know how conscious they are when they do that. I mean, I know they know it because it's sitting right in front of them, but you know, everyone on earth potentially is watching that song you just did, okay? You know, there was a time when it was 40 or 60 or 80 of us in here, and you did it, and you went home, and it lived in memory, and maybe there was an audio recording of it or something, but now you're like out there for everybody. That takes nerve, man. That takes nerve. And these 10 novelists, including Jeffrey Shredding, that was excellent, but these 10 novelists had to push through, who do I think I am? What do I have to say? Who is going to be interested in this? How is it going to be received? Are people going to laugh at me? And they just had to do it, and they just had to say it. And I think it was Alice Walker who said, if you have not yet read the book you wish to read, then you must be the one to write it. Okay? You must be the one to write it. So there's a book in you, there's a painting in you, there's a song in you, there's a you in you that you get out of the way of. Get out of the way of the divine circuits. And when you step out, a power meets you where you are. You step out across the threshold of your own possibilities, you know. This power meets you, and it introduces you to other people, and it brings you other ideas. And I'll close with this. I'm going to come back to Reverend Lisa because it's a big week for her, you know. And for others, she's not the only one having a panel out there for everyone, but she's who we know the best, and she's who we love, you know. I've watched her, and you've watched her, not just develop as a person and as a teacher and so on, but the inevitable thing that happens is when Lisa first put up her hand and said, I think I want ministry, and before that put up her hand and said, I think I want to be a practitioner. And I remember when she did the ministry talk, because it was right here. It was right here on this. You remember? It was on a Sunday, and she came up to me out of the blue. You never know what people are going to say to you. They come up and they say, well, the toilets are backed up again, or we're out of coffee. No, Lisa comes up, and she says, I want to be a minister. I want to go to ministry school. And it was too perfect, because if you knew Lisa then, it was like, this is it. This is bound to happen. But when she made, my point is, when she made the commitment to do that, all sorts of stuff came out of the woodwork. that hadn't been there before. She met people, she got information, things started to come together for this to happen. Not as a reward exactly, because this work, though rewarding, it's not a final thing. You know, you don't get something draped around your neck, now you're done. No, you get busy. Now you get to be the one they come up to and say the toilets are backed up or we're out of coffee. No, right? Yeah, you get to join in the fun. Well, this is what happens to everyone. When you step out there into the world and you say, I'm ready, I'm here, I'm rested and ready. I'm rested and ready for something to happen. Invisible forces kick in. They've been there all along, but now you're on their wavelength. And the rest unfolds just as beautifully and wonderfully as you could possibly imagine. So, more on this next week. The fourth idea out of the 10. Again, please check out Sarah's book study. It will help with this as well as the many other things that we've got going on. And I do hope you'll join us on Wednesday night for the Race Conversation Part 2. That will, as Danielle said, be on Facebook Live, also on YouTube later. And now I invite you just to know with me, there is one life, there is one power. I remind myself of this. I don't call it into being as one, as though it were not. No, it always has been. But now I attune myself to it. This oneness. And I learned in school, as did you, that everything is reducible in form to atomic structure and subatomic. And down at those very fine, granular levels of expression, there's a unity. The atoms in me are flowing off and being replaced by the atoms in the air surrounding me. And everything is contained within the atmosphere of this planet except the parts that escape. And where they escape to is still part of the same model of consciousness as on the surface of this earth. That's all the physicality of it, beautiful though it is. There's a greater dimension still, that there is one life, a non-physical life, a world of imagination, of possibility, of potential. And I live in the midst of that. And potential to be realized needs me. To meet it halfway, to be open to it, to participate with it, to put my hand up and say, yes, I will. And to wake up each morning with a sense of purpose in my life, that I'm getting somewhere, and this world is getting somewhere, and it's not simply by fits and starts that we move, but there is a dynamic evolution occurring in and through all of us toward a world that works for everyone. We feel it in our hearts, and it's only at the level of ideology that we may disagree as to how best to go about this, and so we keep talking. We keep talking. And mostly, we keep feeling and envisioning and treating for this knowing, for the way that it has already manifested as this wonderful spiritual community called Creative Life, and all those who are part of it, and how it continues to manifest through all the good that is yet to come. I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
It is. Now we come to giving time. As our ushers make their way to the back, though, I would like to ask, is there anyone here for the first time? Please raise your hand and let us know. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of the service. We will have something special for you, so please wait around to receive that. And also, if you're here for the first time online, let us know that as well. You can message us in chat, or you can email us at info@creativelife.org and let us know. And so welcome. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this service, and I hope we see you again. And now, I would like to invite everyone, as you give your donations, just to thank you again for your service to us, for being here, your light, your energy, your warmth. We greatly appreciate everything that you provide this center, including all monetary funds. So thank you for that. I invite you now to say with me, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
And I will tell you the reason why you don't remember me coming to you and telling you I wanted to be a practitioner is because I didn't. You came to me and said, hey, there's this meeting you should come to. And I showed up, and 2 years later, they handed me a practitioner's license, and I went, what? So I enjoy telling that story on you. So, because honestly, I'd never thought about being a practitioner. Never even occurred to me. Now, that call to ministry, that was the thing. I ignored it for a good 10 years. And as Spirit is wont to do, it kept plucking at my coat sleeves. And finally, one day said, you're going. Do it. And so I went to the one person that I knew would have answers to me and said, hey, I think I want to be a minister. And he said, great. And then the ball rolled. So here we are. And I'm just going to get ready to send you out into this cold day. But I'm going to send you out wrapped up in the warmth of Spirit. So take a nice deep breath. Breathe in that warmth. Breathe in that love. And as you exhale, breathe out anything that doesn't look like that. So let it all go. And know that there is one life, one power, one presence, one love. And that love is the source of us, the source of each and every one of us. And it is the source of our power. It is the source of our being. It is the source of those urges of things to do that we don't know how we're going to do. But it is the source of the support for that. When we step up, Spirit meets us halfway. And it does so in that love. So I call on that love now for the people of a town in Texas, that they know that the peace and the comfort of Spirit is there, and that they are held in those arms as we hold them now. And for all of the people that will be traveling to this convention, that we are held in safety, we are held in health, we are held in love. And for all of my fellow panelists, that we know who we are, and that Spirit speaks for us and speaks the words that we need to hear. And that it is an amazing experience that others have gone through and will continue going through, so that we can continue to spread this message, to spread this love, to spread this knowing. And that we all have a good time. No, we all have a great time. And so I'm grateful for this knowing. I'm grateful for this teaching. I am grateful for this love. I am grateful for this place. I am grateful for these people. I am grateful for our ministers, our musicians, our tech team, our ability to bring this to you in the comfort of your own home. And I am grateful just to be. And I release my word into law, knowing it is done, even as I speak these words. And so it is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We need rubber mats on everything.
We do. Like rubber shoes or something.
Join us for the peace song, please.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my
I
mind.
feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust it.
I use it.
I use
and
it.
I love it.
And I love it.
So it is.
And so it is.